You're listening to Soap Dirt, the latest in television entertainment news.
Hey there, Days of Our Lives fans. It is Belinda from Soap Dirt, and I'm doing a follow-up to our video the other day where we were talking about the backstage controversy and our concern that if they didn't take a firm hand with this, that it might actually end up getting Days of Our Lives canceled. And some people came in and they said, oh, they had a 2-season renewal. Yeah, that's fine. You can have a 2-season renewal the same way that an actor can have a 3-year contract, and the network can do what the network wants to do. And they can fire the actors, they can shut down a show. There's lots they can do. And in this situation where the crew was alienated and the cast put in a petition and was basically not on strike, but it was heading that way, then the network could have just said, this is a whole bunch of hassle we don't need, and we're not making that much money on this soap opera. They are expensive to make. They're not that high profit really anymore. They could have let it go. But they didn't, because NBC and Corday Productions, that makes Days of Our Lives, did something about this situation and the allegations that were raised. Co-executive producer Albert Alarr was fired on Friday, August 4th. Janet Drucker replaced him fully in his role, which is co-EP and an episode director. So if you didn't listen to the other video, if you're not completely apprised of this situation, I'm going to tell you what happened real quick and then some other stuff that has unfolded, including Albert Alarr's contentious reply to his firing. So there were these complaints against Albert Alarr, and Sony, who is the parent company that produces the show, and then Corday is the production company that makes it, Corday Productions. And Ken Corday, who runs that production company, his parents actually founded the company and have been involved with Days of Our Lives forever. So Sony came in to investigate the complaints against Albert Alarr, and basically he even admitted that at least one of the incidences was true, and they issued a written warning to him and gave him directions to attend some sort of training. Well, that wasn't nearly good enough for the cast and the crew. Unhappy with this outcome, 25 actors band together with a petition, and it called the outcome of the investigation traumatic and disheartening, and said many of us feel and will continue to feel very uncomfortable and distraught should he stay involved with the show. Many of us have either been physically or verbally violated by him, including witnessing these objectionable and offensive actions. So this is interesting, and I want you to bear that in mind, that 25 actors and ex-actors that are no longer on the show have also chimed in to say they wish they were still around to sign it and have signed it in spirit. So I want you to remember the math of 25 plus actors, because later that's going to contradict a lot of what Albert Alarr said in his response statement. So after news of the petition broke, Farrah Fath Galford, if you don't remember her, she played Mimi Lockhart, said she would love to sign it in spirit since she's no longer in the show. And she said that the complaints that she read were also the same experiences that she had. And she said she didn't actually know that other sets weren't as bad as that until she went to another show. So she said that when she was 19, Albert Alarr directed her in her first love scene. And she said she was very nervous. She was extremely modest, and she was freaked out to be in her underwear in front of dozens of crew men who had known her since she was 15. And she said, ew. Obviously, I mean, she'd been around them since she was underage. She's doing it is, the whole thing is ew. And she says, rather than trying and making this, teenage person feel comfortable or at ease, instead, she says, Albert Alarr pushed and pushed and pushed on a particular issue and was annoyed when she stood her ground. So he was obviously hassling her to do something or say something during this love scene, and she didn't want to do it. She said, had a woman director been in charge of that scene, that she would have felt protected instead of exposed. And she also said that she's shocked that Albert Alarr learned nothing after the Me Too movement or the cast and crew's daily appalled reactions to him. And she said, his time is up. And it is, because after the news made headlines and the cast petition broke and Days of Our Lives production shut down, they finally fired Albert Alarr. This has been going on for a while, and he got the slap on the wrist and he got to keep working because there wasn't enough outcry about it, because it wasn't on the radar of the mainstream media. They weren't being called out for letting this go. So some of the allegations against Alar include improper touching, kissing an actress, stepping in to block sex scenes with actresses in the place of the actors that were in the scene with them, mocking older actresses, calling Judy Evans a dyke, allegedly, cursing at male actors during love scenes, telling them to act like they want to F her. It's just a long list of very terrible allegations and accusations. Then, late Friday, August 4th, Ken Corday sent out an email to cast and crew that said, effective immediately, Janet Drucker will be elevated to co-EP of Days of Our Lives, replacing Albert Alarr, who will be exiting his role. They had shut down for a week that turned into like 2 weeks, and they said it was to examine the situation before it further escalates. In addition to firing Alarr, they also promised additional HR protocols and increased HR presence and channels to report issues to ensure a safe and inclusive workplace environment. Production was set to resume Monday, August 7th, 2023. As far as we know, it did. So Albert Alarr then issued a statement about his firing and said he finds the situation heartbreaking, and said the investigation was independent, and said the claims were thoroughly looked into, and said they fired him based on no new facts, and said the studio reversed course and caved to a cynical pressure campaign to force me out of my job. Then he went on to say that most people who worked with him would disagree with these mischaracterizations of him. He said he's been in the industry for decades without a single complaint until now. I just want to pause here for just a couple of points. So, talking about the majority of people who work with him would disagree. Well, 25 actors. Think about how many actors are probably working on that set right now. And I bet if you did the math, that sounds like the majority of the actors on set signed this petition, because that's a lot of people. And if we just start counting characters, we're going to rapidly get too close to that number, maybe a little over it. But yeah, it sounds to me like nearly every actor, if not every actor, signed that petition. So that flies right in the face of this first part of this statement. And then he said he's been in the industry for decades without a single complaint until now. All right, I've got two names for you: Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby. Both men who worked in the industry for decades with no complaints against them. I'm not going to go any further than that, but I think we all know that the second part of that statement doesn't hold water. All right, so one side note here as well is that one of the allegations was that there was no HR presence at all on the show, and that Albert Alarr himself was the one that handled HR complaints. That meant that nothing about him could be raised to anyone else. That is a tricky situation to put people in when someone who's accused of doing things is the person in charge of handling the complaints, right? All right. So Albert Alarr also said there was a strategy of vile stereotypes used to bring down a black man in a position of power, noting that he is the only black director and producer in daytime soap. Albert Alarr further claimed that this came from just two people who were focused on more money and screen time. Maybe the initial allegations were two people. We'll see. If any more of this comes out, we may not get any more of this. The bottom line is only the people working at Days of Our Lives know the full truth of what went on backstage with Albert Alarr and with the people who raised the allegations. Only the people who worked back there know. Albert Alarr has been fired and Janet Drucker has replaced him. Here's a little side note. He has been co-executive producer with Days of Our Lives for 20 years. He came on as a director in 2003, so 20 years. Janet Drucker has been with Days of Our Lives since 1984. She's been there for almost 40 years. Aside from this issue, here's my question to Days of Our Lives. Why wasn't Janet Drucker already a co-executive producer, 40 years on Days of Our Lives. 40 years. And lack of opportunities for women at Days of Our Lives was another of the allegations raised, saying women were paid less and fired more, both among cast and crew. Now at least they have a woman as a co-EP. But again, 40 years for her to get there. That's almost equally as shocking to me as the rest of this tale. All right, maybe Days of Our Lives will do better now. We'll see. You guys let me know what you think. Drop us a comment below. Click a like if you enjoyed this scathing commentary. And if you haven't already, please reach down and click subscribe. We appreciate that so much. Thank you for listening. Come back soon for more on Days of Our Lives.
Thank you for being a loyal listener. Follow us wherever you get your podcast, because you don't want to miss the next episode. Soap Dirt is on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more.